Hello, everybody. I am very excited to bring to you a beautiful soul that I met last year, and his name is Alan Tutt. He is an incredible author of the book Choose to Believe, a practical guide to living your dreams. He's committed to helping people tap into their unlimited power within them and channel it in ways that allow them to enjoy immense success with ease. His work has been focused on both manifesting and hypnotic change work, and he has a unique ability to help his clients solve insurmountable problems in mere minutes. And what drew me to you, Alan, and so the audience knows, is that uh, there was things. First of all, the hypnotic piece of that. As I explained to you, it was so powerful for me to hear that you have these incredible recordings, which people will get in our beautiful giveaway later on this year. And if you're part of listening to this after the fact, then just reach out to either one of us to ask us what we're talking about by all means. But Alan, I am so very, very excited that you are here. Hi.
Thank, Thanks for having me here. I'm happy to spend time with you.
So tell us a little bit about what it means, the insurmountable problems, then just in mere minutes.
Well, one of the classic examples of that in the hypnotic world, also in what most people call NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, is something called the fast phobia cure. And this is something where if someone has had a traumatic experience early in life and their unconscious mind has linked that traumatic experience to something that is relatively innocuous. As an example, the fear of cats is one such examples. Someone who is afraid of cats may have had an experience early on in life where a cat jumped out of the dark and scared them while they were in the middle of doing something else. And then that experience has stuck with them throughout their life. And so now, even as an adult, every time they see a cat, there's something inside that just says, no, no, I don't want to be here. And that just one example, but those types of things that have lingered on for years and years and years and years. And no amount of thinking will change that, because a lot of these people, they know the fear is irrational. They know there's no logical reason for them to be afraid of something like that. And yet there's something inside that responds differently. And because of that, there is a process that we can lead people through to connect with that source of unconscious response within, to relax into that, to open a door to a new experience. And through a very specific set of steps, within a matter of 20 minutes or so, they can come out of that experience and not only be not afraid of whatever it is that they were afraid of, but actually have a sense of curiosity about it, so that, I just don't know enough about this. I would like to experience this a little bit more. And it's incredible the changes that are possible when we make a connection to that deep level of mind within that goes beyond conscious thought, that goes beyond logical thought, that gets into the emotions, and even beyond the emotions into the visceral feelings of just being. And when we work on that level, we can create changes that are far beyond what most people think that they can do.
Wow. I can really feel the energy of that because I've experienced work like yours, and it is very, very impactful and very powerful. Now, you've given us a very concrete example with the cat. What if it's not so concrete? An example of that is, what if it's something that's actually happened to you in maybe a past life or something like that? Is that a direction that you play in as well?
Yeah, we can work with that. It's really just a matter of finding where the anchor point is. And as far as something that's not so concrete, Can you give me an example of something that you're thinking about with that?
For sure. Actually, there's two examples. One is a habit of eating, and during a hypnosis session, has discovered that they were actually in an area where they starved to death in this frozen ship in the Antarctic or whatever. Another one is a person who's maybe walked a plank off of a pirate ship, were forced off the plank, and now are terrified of swimming because they lost their lives in that lifetime.
Okay. Well, to my mind, those are relatively concrete because, especially in the second one, there's the fear of water. And so, even though the cause of that may not necessarily have been in this lifetime, it's still an anchor point that we can use to access where that fear may have been coming from. The first one, as far as feeling a need to eat and eat and eat because there's this subconscious fear of not having enough, that's also enough of an anchor point to be able to follow that train of feelingness into that inner space to connect with the source of it. And as far as connecting to the source, with these processes, there's really not a need to go back to the original cause, to go back to the initial sensitizing event, as some people call it. All we really need to do is identify what is the behavior that we would like to change. And then once you have identified that behavior, once you have connected to that on a level that allows you to feel those negative feelings coming up for you, then it's just a matter of finding a way to set that aside for the moment and say, okay, I acknowledge that this exists. I'm going to just set that to the side for now. And if I am now in a future time where this problem no longer exists, what would I like in its place? What would I like to feel in that situation? And then to make that conscious choice of, I would like to feel comfortable swimming, as an example, or I would like to feel when my body is satisfied with food and no longer feel a craving. I would like those cravings to just go away only when they're and come back only when they're necessary. So I would like those cravings to be more in control. And so once we have identified the problem, we've set it off to the side, we have identified what we would like to have in that situation, then it's a matter of practicing using that new tool, using that new skill, living in the new world, if you want to call it that. Some people talk about timeline jumping and quantum realities and just stepping into a new reality. It's like, really can be that simple. Once you have connected on that deep inner level, you go through this process and you say, okay, that's the problem. We're going to set that aside. We're going to get rid of that. And in its place, I want this instead. And with this being my current, now, future reality, how am I going to live in this new reality? And then you just kind of mentally rehearse living with this new behavior. And it's like, yeah, I can get used to this. Yeah, I can get used to this. And I can imagine that maybe I've already done this a few times. Maybe I've done this for months and years, and it's become such an ingrained habit that now I feel so solid, so secure in this new behavior that when I wake up again out of this experience, it's just going to feel totally natural to do this new thing instead of that old thing.
I want to jump in here because what I'm hearing is ideally concrete evidence, if you will, or a very specific way to actually start to become the person you want to be. Like this just feels so very, very powerful to me. So, can you go a little bit deeper with this concept?
Oh, yeah. As far as becoming the person you want to be, it is so incredible just how flexible we can be as individuals. And before I really get into that a little too much, let me just kind of share my view of who we are as a human being. Because we come into this world, we have a certain number of experiences, we grow and develop in certain ways based off of the experiences that we've had. And at some point, we get into this mind state of, okay, I know who I am. I am Alan Tutt. I am a male. I am a human being. I am an introvert, as I was at one time. I am a logical thinker, as I still am to some degree. I am very much interested in this type of music. I don't like that type of music. And we have all of these definitions of who we are as a person. And yet, when we really, again, going back into that deep inner level, when we go past all of the outer conditions of the world and go past the way that we behave in response to the world and touch into that core of who we truly are, we find that at the core of our essence, we are a divine being. We are a being of light. We are a being of joy, of love, of wisdom and power. And all of the qualities of the divine are found within each one of us. And when we get down into that level, we touch into that level, and we allow ourselves to fully explore the unlimited possibilities that come from being a divine being. I mean, the divine creator created everything in such wonderful variety and complexity. We have that same capability. And when we touch into that level, we eventually, it's not an immediate thing right off the bat, but eventually, when you spend enough time in that deep inner level, you discover that all of the things that you thought you were merely habits that you've collected over time. I had collected the habit of being the introvert, to being the shy person, to being holding back and watching what everyone else was doing before I even ventured saying something. I had the habit of looking at the logical side of things and ignoring the emotions. I had certain habits that once I understood that they were habits, and I took the initiative to change those habits, I learned that I could be an intuitive person, which was totally alien to who I used to be. I learned that I could feel emotions on a deep, passionate level, and I could be swayed by other people's emotions. I found that I could be different than who I thought I was. And so, being the person that we want to be, it all comes down to, what life do you want to live? And for me, one of the most clear demonstrations of what I'm talking about, a few years ago, I realized that the message that I have to share with the world, that we are a divine being, that we do have the power to create our world the way we want it to be. In order for me to properly share that message, I needed to be able to get out in public, do podcasts like this, to get out on stages, to be in front of audiences. And that shy, reserved, introverted person didn't feel comfortable with that. And so I decided that I needed to change who I was to the level of being comfortable being in front of an audience, being comfortable walking up to strangers and saying, "Hey, how you doing? How are you enjoying the event here today? What are you looking to get out of this?" And just start that conversation and see where it goes. And so I
Okay,
was
so
able to change who I was on that level.
I want to hop in here because you're so speaking my language. Like truly, this is so very, very powerful. I am all about recognizing the habit that you have. Yes, I use rewriting, you use hypnotic process. I love that we both have the same end game in mind for people to be everything that they can be, and to really recognize that internal light, that beautiful divine being that we are. And with that in mind, I do as well promote this idea of, yes, we can rewrite this and then recognize the habit that you've had in your life and recreating that habit. So, how are you using the hypnotic principles for this self change, or for this change, for breaking the habits, without, I guess, giving the bank away? What are some of the steps that are taken?
Actually, it's pretty much the same thing that we've been talking about, because habits come from the same place that fears do. Any type of automatic response is coming from that same place. When we go into that deep inner level, when we connect with what has been up until now, the old habit, which could be a habit of fear, at certain irrational things. It could be a habit of eating when we're not hungry. It could be the habit of holding back when we should be stepping forward. It can be any type of habit. Once we connect with that habit and realize that there are certain elements of this that I do not wish to experience any longer, and I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to erase that out of my experience. That's like step one and step two of the process. In fact, in NLP, this is called the meta pattern. It's a 4-step process that's kind of behind all change work in one way or another. There's a lot of different ways to play with it. You can dress it up. You can make it fun. You can make it very much enjoyable. But when you really nail it down to the core, it really is just the 4 steps. You identify it, you connect with it. Identify it and connect with it is the first step. The second step is to somehow set it aside. You can think of it as, okay, you're now turning this into a symbolic item, and you are causing this symbolic item to shrink in size, to lose its power, to drain its essence into the earth so that it can be renewed and remade into something else. You can destroy it. You can throw it away. You can send it off into a black hole. In one particular case, just to carry on a theme, there was a recording that I made, and I was listening to that recording to check quality and also to see what kind of response I had. And in the recording, there was a suggestion to allow your creative genius within to give you an experience where you're letting go and getting rid of old problems. And I'm not a gun person. I'm not someone who goes out to hunt or anything, but I suddenly saw myself out in nature on a hill, skeet shooting. And it's like there's whatever the machine is off to the side, and it's like pull, and off would throw the thing into the air and shoot the gun, boom, blast it out of the sky. And then the next thing, pull, blast that one out of the sky. And it's like, boy, that's just a fun way to get rid of your problems. So that's the second of the 4 steps. Third step is to identify what you want to put in its place. And again, it's a different way of feeling about something. It could be a different way of acting. It could be a different way of responding and behaving, and the new habit that you would like to develop. And then the 4th step is to just simply practice that in your mind a few times so that it becomes integrated into the essence of who you are, so that it becomes the natural response that you go to. It's the go-to response that you just do automatically without even thinking about it. And it just makes that change work process so much easier.
This is so very, very powerful. I feel the imagery of what you're presenting, especially with the skeet shooting and the pole. Like I could just see, I could feel the energy of you standing there, and bringing yourself into this. I imagine that you're very conscious, you as the practitioner, if you will, of what's going on. Because I, like myself as the practitioner, there are times when people are not necessarily ready to entirely let go of something. I know for myself, it was a matter of helping the person I was working with create a very long cord. And instead of it having this short reverberation, I think that's the word, where it comes back to them, it was, no, let it be as long as you want it to be, and let it just go all the way out there. Let it circle the earth, 10, 15, 100 times if you like. And it has, if you want to stay connected to it, you can. If you're not ready to let go of it in its entirety, you can, except that it's not serving you if it's right up against you. And giving this person the freedom to do that was really beautiful to witness. So I imagine that you, as the practitioner, are very consciously aware of that part.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We all have to work with what we are capable of doing, because even though it would be beautiful and wonderful to say that you are infinite and unlimited and you can express it right now, the truth is that sometimes we need to grow into something. Sometimes we need to stretch those boundaries a little bit at a time, because that's much more comfortable. And I'm all about pushing the limits. Because unless you push the limits will always stay where they are. But pushing the limits doesn't necessarily mean breaking things. It means just pushing it off just a little bit here, maybe a little bit there, and say, okay. Or like you said, maybe it's not a matter of just getting rid of something completely. Maybe it's about setting it down and walking away a few feet and say, okay, I'm still okay. I'm still okay. I'm a little bit of a distance from that. Okay, I can handle this. Okay, let me come back and warm my hands on the fire again. Okay, let's set it aside a little bit further and walk away a little bit further away from it. Yeah, I can handle this. And just a little bit at a time. One step at a time will take you around the world. One step at a time can take you anywhere. So if the process of change feels overwhelming, don't worry about changing everything all at once. Just change a little bit at a time. And you will eventually become the person you want to be, living the life you want to live, one step at a
One
time.
step at a time. I love that. I also heard you doing this as you spoke. And I could feel the energy of what you were helping people with, even in that moment, because it is such an ingrained piece of yourself right now. And so let's speak a little bit about how this, like, there's so many pieces that we've presented to people. It's becoming the person you want. It's breaking the habits. It's also that effective communication with yourself. So each of these pieces that you're laying out become ingrained, just like you doing this, that helped us. Like, I felt myself move into those two pieces that you were talking about. So what's the benefit of this?
There can be a lot of different benefits. Um, actually, I guess if I were to nail it down to one thing, it's about enjoying life. It's about feeling free to be yourself and to realize that you can enjoy things that have previously been outside your comfort zone. Again, going back to the limits and the lack of them in defining who you are as a person. Uh, Going back to the music example, this is just a simple example because I think it's easy for everyone to understand. But we all have a favorite form of music, and as a consequence, there's also some other form of music that we're least favorite. That's our least favorite. We're not as fond of that. And for me, the forms of music that I'm probably least comfortable with would be opera. I can't understand what they're saying, for one. Rap music is just not in resonance with who I am. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just not for me. And country music. I'm not really a big fan of country music. I love bluegrass, but not so much country music. But here's the thing. There have been times when I'm out with friends and we go into a place and there's country music playing and I'm thinking, okay, I'm here. I'm choosing to be here. Okay, let me switch gears. Let me shift into another level of reality here. And in this level of reality, at least for the current time, I am the type of person who enjoys this. I really get into it. I really am fascinated by this. And for the time that I'm there, yeah, I'm really getting into it. It's like, yeah, I can really get into that rhythm. I can get into that twang in the voice and all of that. And for the time that I'm there, yeah, it's pleasant. It's enjoyable. And I don't even have to think about that anymore because I'm able to focus on the interaction with the friends, the group that I'm there with, and that's just off in the background anyway. So it's not really that important.
I love that. There's a lot. Again, I keep saying the word power because I really can feel the power of what you're offering. You brought to mind something when you said that I'm not so much into opera because I don't understand what they're saying. I remember my daughter. I took her to I believe it was the Nutcracker, okay, and that is purely ballet with music. And when we left, she goes, I don't, I'm really not sure what happened there, Mom, because there was nobody telling me what the story was. So there's a real power to what you just said about what is the story that I want to be in right now. And stepping into that story of, I'm not going to choose to be uncomfortable here. I'm going to choose to, witness my friends enjoying themselves and be in the energy of that power of being enjoyed enjoying my life. So how does this come into play with regards to now uh, that next step of really recognizing that creative genius within yourself, because you're starting to become yourself. You're starting to recognize that you can communicate with yourself and tell yourself different stories, changing aspects of yourself, if you will. How does that now translate into being a creative genius?
Okay. Um, because I guess the simplest answer, and we can expand on that, but the simplest answer is because when you really get down to the core of who you are, down into that divine essence, you are a creative genius. It's just who you are. And expressing that genius is really the only change that we need to make. And in making that happen, there are a few steps that we need to make in order to get us to that goal. Uh, because that creative genius within, most of us find that it's silent, it's hidden. And whenever we're looking to be creative, sometimes it's kind of hard to find. And there are a certain number of things that will close us off from that creative genius within. And if we truly want to express it, we need to open up those channels again. And the first and most impactful way that we close off from that creative genius is the experience of stress. When we are feeling stressed in the world, when we are worried about where things are going, what's going to happen, are we even safe to be who we are, as some people are fearful of right now? It's like, do I truly express who I am? And it goes beyond just criticism. I mean, it goes into being ridiculed. It goes down into um, a lot of weird stuff that I'm not going to bring out right now because I don't want to focus on that. But whenever we're feeling stressed or anxious, there's this natural tendency to try to protect ourselves. And even though we may not necessarily be doing it on a physical level, there's a sense of that happening on the emotional level, maybe even on the mental level as well. We're closing ourselves off from the outer world. But the problem with that is that when we close ourselves off, it's not just from the outer world, it's also from that deep inner resource. And so, if we want access to all those creative ideas, we have to allow ourselves to relax and open up and to realize that, yeah, there may be things going on in the outer world, but for this moment right now, there is safety. In this moment right now, I can be myself. And by releasing that stress, and there are ways that we can go through to not only release it, but we can also change some of those habit patterns that we've been talking about so that we see things in the outer world and we don't automatically respond with stress. See, a lot of people think stress is caused by outer events. It's really not that way. It's that we see outer events and we respond with stress. And so by changing that response pattern, we can implement a system within that is completely immune to stress. And so that's the first of 6 steps that I teach to truly access and let that creative genius flow through. Some of the other steps, just to kind of briefly highlight them, is uh,
Actually,
go back.
let's just stop there for a moment, because there's a couple things I want to highlight. First of all, Martha just loves this subject, for starters. I'm also going to share Maria, a beautiful friend of mine, experience. There's something I wanted to share as well, is that I recognized a couple of years ago when I got together with a bunch of high school friends for the first time in a long time. I think there was a collective group of about 8 of us. And I really recognized after the fact that I had not adapted to them this time, that I had gone in there very much being myself, and that we were all together being ourselves to whatever degree. Like I felt more like coming together of the energies versus the resisting and being in that stress mode. I want to share what Maria wrote as well, that her sister calls her chameleon for that social skill, being able to mold myself to my environment in order to be comfortable and enjoy. And I really want to take that a step further for Maria and others as well, is if you're recognizing that that's what's happening, recognize too exactly what Alan's been saying here is this the natural you that's in that space? And I believe with Maria, because I know her fairly well, that where she used to be and who she is now are probably two totally different people, although people may not recognize that for themselves, but she very likely recognizes her own power when she's stepping into these spaces and how she's adjusting now because of everything that you've just spoken about. So thank you for letting me put that to voice.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And being the chameleon can be considered a superpower. It is a very strong, capable, useful skill to have. The only thing that I would speak against that for is when you're giving up on things that you want in order to fit in with what other people are doing. And I would say that's really the only downside to it. And the solution to that is to identify what you truly want and then put yourself into situations where that natural ability to adapt allows you to attain the things that you want to have. So that's the only
Exactly.
caveat that I've had.
Yeah, and I'm really glad you put that out there for the listeners because again, it's really recognizing who you are in that space in that moment of time because I can go into situations now and feel very uncomfortable and by choice start to pay attention to, okay, why am I feeling uncomfortable? What am I attempting to butt up against? Right? Yeah. So there's like you've given us 4 steps in one piece. There's 6 steps in here, and I love that because it shows that this is thought out. This isn't just picking at straws or whatever. And some of the basis of what you do is very familiar to myself because for me it's acknowledged that there's something going on, accept something's going on, seeing how I'm reacting to it, recognizing that I have choices and then standing in the decision of whatever that choice is that I make, right? And I can hear that in what you're saying as well. So coming around back to all of this, let's kind of dive a little bit deeper into the topic of the day, if you will, and that is how do you stay positive and stress free right now in this crazy world with all the things that we've kind of been beautifully stacking together? What's some advice that you could give people right now, or how do you want to tap into this?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That is definitely a very important topic, how to stay positive. Um, my secret, if you want to call it that, is I look at the world a little bit differently than most. And this is something that, again, it would be wonderful if I could just simply share the information with the audience and say, this is all you need and just go with it. But there is a little bit of a growing process involved here because again, when I look at who we are at the core, I see a divine being. I see a being of light. I see a being of power. And I believe, and I've seen so much evidence to support this belief, that we have the power to manifest our visions into reality. I believe that we can choose what we would like to experience and have it manifest for us. And one very quick example, I have developed a reputation, especially in this local area, for being the guy to call whenever you want good weather for an outdoor event. Because if I am scheduled to be somewhere outdoors, I don't like rain. I don't like cold. I don't like a lot of the nasty stuff from winter and that type of thing. I like it warm. I like it sunny. I like all of that wonderful summer weather. And so I have found that I can sit back, connect with that deep inner divine self within, put myself into that future time we're at that event in that space and visualizing myself in that space where it's around me and it's now the time that we're going to be there, I can imagine the type of weather that I want. It's like, okay, I want blue skies, but you know what? I'm taking pictures. I need a few clouds to soften the light a little bit. Okay, I want the thermometer to be showing mid 70s somewhere. I want to see that. We can have a little bit of a light breeze, nothing too heavy though. If we're doing a cookout, it's like, well, we don't want the ground to be too dry. So maybe have it rain the day before. And I'll put myself into that space and I'll imagine it in such vivid detail. And then I'll come out of that visualization process and I'll anchor that in and I say, okay, I know this is going to happen. I know that I have the power to create. I know that this is going to happen for me. And luckily, I have had enough experience with this to know that I don't have to do a whole lot more. It's going to happen. And the vast majority of the times it does. Occasionally, there will be a time when it doesn't quite go as planned, but very, very rare. And this has quite often changed the actual weather from what was predicted for the day. Because if they're predicting rain, if they're predicting cold, and I say, no, we're not going to have that. Going back to the 4-step process, if we want to look at that, we acknowledge what the prediction is. We're saying, I'm having none of that. And then this is what I'm going to have instead. And rehearsing myself into that space again, come out of that with a feeling of confidence, a feeling of assurity, a feeling of expectation that what you want will actually happen. And it's that expectation, that anticipation. It's like, oh, this is going to be fun. This is going to be nice. And that anticipation tends to create it for you. So anybody who feels like, okay, the outer world has gone crazy, here's the way I look at it. That's surface conditions. The reality of what goes on underneath there is a purpose at work. I'm going to simply acknowledge that sometimes you need something negative to happen to inspire a positive action. And all of the negative things that are happening right now, okay, they may be difficult to go through. It may not be pleasant, but there's going to be a positive outcome for it. And I'm focused on the positive outcome. And I'm going to focus on manifesting that positive outcome as peacefully, as harmoniously, as pleasantly as possible. And so by focusing on those qualities, a lot of the unpleasantness that is threatening to be part of our experience may find a way to just fade away, and we don't even have to deal with it anymore. And so I'm holding a vision of a beautiful, perfect world where everyone is happy, everyone is accepted, everyone is empowered to be who they are, living the life they want to live, and all is good. I'm holding that vision. Let's manifest it together.
I love this. Absolutely love this. This feels like it has been a lot of sunshine. This conversation has been a lot of sunshine today, and I really appreciate you, Alan. There's a couple more things. One is for those of you who are listening, be sure to catch Alan and the incredible gift giveaway that's coming up over the spring equinox. If you're watching this after the fact, it is available to be witnessed in other places like my YouTube channel and possibly through Alan's spots as well. Also, too, you have a gift, I believe, for the audience. First of all, the way to find Alan is at powerkeyspub.com, powerkeyspub.com. You can honestly feel the energy of what he's sharing with us here, with helping you unlock the incredible power of your entire mind. You can see how much this is very much in line with myself and the people who hang around with me. And your gift, what would you like to share about your gift?
Well, because this is being recorded, I want to make sure that everyone knows that the gift that I offer changes from time to time. But there is one page that you can go to see whatever the current gift happens to be. At the time that we are recording this, it is a collection of 10 hypnotic recordings that will help you make a fresh start in life. It will help you define your goals. It will help you define who you want to be as a person. It will help you make certain changes of habits that you would like to change to step into your future self, to step into your power, to step into the enjoyable life that is yours to claim. Now, that may change over time. And if it does change, then if you go to the gift page, which we created a special link for it for this podcast, powerkeyspub.com/Sandra Pelly, go to that. You will find whatever the current gift is. It's always something good. It's always something empowering, and it does change from time to time. So that's probably the best way to describe it right now.
Thank you, Alan. I have one last question for you. With regards to stepping into the light and stepping into your life, how have you found the work that you are doing has changed your life?
Well, let's just say that it started off being solely focused on changing my life. I was in a very negative position for a lot of years, and I found life to be incredibly hard. It was something that I never really did contemplate suicide, but I could easily see where other people may have done living the situation that I was in. So I needed to find something to help me get out of the dark hole that I was in. And once I got myself out of that dark hole, I wanted to share what I knew with the world. I knew I had a message to share. I knew I had discovered something that my description of it, my sharing of it, that my part of the message of it was different than everything else that I'd read. I mean, you can see books behind me. I'm an avid reader. I went through hundreds of books, learning about the power of the mind, learning about manifesting, learning about all these different things. And there were certain threads that ran through all of them. And so I came out of that experience wanting to share what I'd learned. Over time, looking to help more and more people, I realized that this information could be taken to a higher level. And so in my efforts to help other people, I have studied the hypnosis. I have gone into hypnotherapy training, which is where some of this information comes from. And in practicing the techniques, in creating the recordings, I have found that I am changing as a result as well. It's incredible. I will lead someone through a process. And in this process, okay, just to kind of give a little bit extra on this, I am tapping into that creative genius that we were talking about before. I'm tapping into that deep inner level, and I am channeling that wisdom out for the other person that I'm working with so that they hear exactly what they need to hear in the moment. And while that is happening, there's another part of my mind that's listening to what's going on. And it's interesting because there are times when I'm helping someone overcome a problem that I feel like I don't need work on this. But then afterwards, I'm noticing certain shifts in how I'm responding to things, certain ways that I'm doing things differently. And it's like, okay, I guess I still had some of that to work with. Okay, well, I guess I found a new level of freedom. So it's wonderful.
I love that so much, Alan. This has been just truly so very, very incredible. You are absolutely magical. I knew that when I met you. As you know, my friend and I talked a lot about you after the fact, and we're very happy that you're so present in our life right now. And I really hope that you become present in a lot more people's lives because you are a very important piece to a lot of people's pathway, I think, pathway and journey. Thank you so much for being here, Alan.
And thank you so much for being who you are, because once I met you at the Courage to Launch event, I definitely recognized a kindred spirit. It's like, yeah, here's someone that's on my level, on my wavelength.
I love that. Thank you. So you guys know where to find him, the powerkeyspub.com. Once again, thank you, Alan. Thank you, audience. Truly blessed. Take care.
Always happy to serve.